three project directors here that's going to talk to you about various programs within the National Science Foundation. What we're going to do is we'll go through the presentations. We're going to ask that you hold your questions, until the end, because we will have a Q&A. So each presenter is prepared to give a 10 to 15 minute presentation, and I think that you will find the opportunities very, very interesting. So my name is Leroy Jones. I am a project director for the Historically Black Colleges and Universities program, as well as the LSM program. I also have the pleasure of working with the MCA, the Mid-Career Advancement Program that I'm going to talk about today, and then also working with Mary on the Excellent program that she's going to talk about a little bit later. So as you can see here, the mid-career program really addresses a unique universal challenge at the mid-career. So there's a lot of emphasis that's actually put on recruitment. So when we're dealing with undergrads, you have the RAU programs. When you're dealing with graduate students, you have the RFP. And then, of course, for new faculty members, once they're recruited into universities, you have the career grant. But one of the things that we all know, for those of us who are in the academy or who were in the academy, that it's not always about recruitment, but it's also about retention. So you go through your first 5 or 6 years and you're tenured, and once you're tenured, you become an associate professor, and then the beautiful thing happens to you, moving from junior ranks, to senior ranks. They start to really download a lot of things on you, pertaining to service as well as other things. And as a result, it takes away from you being able to do the research, and that just kind of falls by the wayside, for some. So when you kind of do the tallies, what you find is that a lot of people at the associate professor rank said that it's it can be a very unhappy season for them. So what this program is really trying to do is it's just trying to consider, retention as well as advancement, to kind of get people back into doing research, as well as, getting them to the full professorate. So it's a couple of, motivations, behind it. The first thing, of course, is broadening participation. So a lot of times when we're dealing with this mid-career stage, it's one where really a person is at a point where they have fewer institutional resources as well as increased service, and teaching responsibilities. So the question is, how can we get the associate professors that has gotten caught up, in the teaching as well as the service, back into research in a sense, so they can continue to do the fine work that they're doing. Okay, give me just a second. It seems as though I lost my cursor here. All right. The other thing that you will see with this particular program is convergent research. So the program requires that you actually have a partnership, with someone either inside of the university that you're working with or outside of the university to help you, in a sense, kind of retool and learn new skill sets so that you can continue in that research vein. Of course, when we're talking about workforce development, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So as professors at any rank, whether assistant or associate or at the professor ranks, you are training young people to enter, the workforce. And of course, the better skilled, trained you are, you then can, convey those skills, to the individuals that's working in your lab and make them more competitive, for the STEM workforce. And then, of course, it's about fostering innovation, right? So, you look around the room about the time that you're at the associate professor's rank, you have a lot of skills, in research, and we're just trying to figure out a way, give you an opportunity where you can continue, to innovate and come up with some new and exciting ideas. All right, so let's get into the mid-career advancement program. And one of the things that I need for you to, understand, with this program is that it's really about making sure that associate professors, stay and remain engaged and active, in cutting edge, type research. And what we're really trying to deal with is just your time, providing you with protective time. What's nice about this program is that it's the only cross-directorate NSF program targeted at the mid-career stage. So at associate professors. Also, it provides you that protected time, that you need so that you can do that research, as well as, it's promoting the partnerships as well as collaborations. And then the other thing is it supports the advancement not otherwise likely to incur, with this type of opportunities.
Is this only for associate professors?
Well, I'm going to get to that. Yeah. Full professors can do it. It's in a pilot stage, but we're going to talk about that. Yeah. So right now, these are the directorates that's participating in the MCA. Originally, when this started out, this is a fairly new program in fiscal year 20. It was only in the bio. And then in 21-22, it expanded. In 23, we've added on a couple of others like the TIP Directorate, which just joined, which was just established at the NSF. So right now it's in the Bio Directorate, the Geoscience Directorate, STEM Education, all divisions, as well as TIP. And then you can see also an SBE. If you do not see that directorate there, and I'm going to name them a little bit later, we need for you to do us a favor. Reach out to those division directors or those triple Ds or that project director and ask them why they're not a part of the MCA program. So if pressure is coming from the outside, maybe they will, join ranks with us. To your question, sir, the director of bioscience as well as geoscience just started kind of a pilot program for the rest of us, where if you are a full professor at a PUI, you can also take advantage of this program. Okay. All right, so this kind of answers the who, what, and when. So as you can see, bio, geo, SBE, education, as well as TIP is a part of this. We're still working with MPS as well as SIZE and engineering to become a part of this particular program. So that's why I was saying, please encourage those project directors from that program, to participate. So in terms of the who, we're looking at scientists and engineers at the associate rank or equivalent for at least 3 years at that rank. So we say equivalent because it's not necessarily defined to institutions of higher education. It's also can go toward other entities that the NSF funds. I already mentioned that we have a pilot going on in bio and geo. So what the opportunity actually allows you to do, it allows you really projected time, so that you can really advance your career further. So got good news and bad news. I mean, if you come out of this talk and you're nice and you're motivated about applying, the good news is you have until March 1st. So it's actually a window from February 1st, to March 1st. The bad news would be that you have about a little bit over 15 days. But, coming out of the academic ranks, I know that I've been thrown in situations where a team of us was asked to put together something within 2 weeks to submit to some agency. So you still do, have a little bit of time if you want to apply to this particular opportunity. So it is a new solicitation, 22-603, and we've been able to modify the sense, and that was kind of based on the input that we got from people who have applied for it in the past. The budget details have been clarified. I'll talk about that. Also, we decreased the number of, in the project description, from 15 to 12. And we did that because we added an impact statement. And I'll talk about what this impact statement is all about, which is now required. Also, with the partners, they also have to have the COA now. That wasn't in the past. And then we talked about the new pilot track for full professors, at PUIs. So let's talk about the budget details. The nice thing here is, in terms of salary, it provides protected time, up to 6.5 months, plus fringe. And that's over the 3 years of the grant. So that's a significant amount, protected time, for individuals who secures this particular grant. The other thing is resources, direct costs, $100,000 support of research advancement in the training plan. And then for your partner, up to 1 month of summer salary, total, not yearly, or other reasonable costs for each partner. The thing that I want to stress here is that this here is solid. Nothing else takes away from it. So we want to make sure that you have the protected time and that you also have, the resources that you need, depending on the directorate that you apply to or the division that you're in. They'll even allow you to move some things around. So for example, if you wanted a postdoc, or if you wanted an undergrad or a graduate student, that would come out of this. But the nuts and bolts of this particular opportunity is to protect the time, the resources, so that you can actually do the research, as well as that partnership, that we were talking about. Let's see. So let's talk a little bit about the MCA impact statement. Keep in mind, and I'm going to keep pushing this forward, because what's happened in a couple of the last rounds is that people have really put a lot of emphasis, on the research ideal. And yes, it needs to be a solid research, ideal, because it's going to the different divisions. And we're looking for the intellectual merit, we're looking for the broader impacts. But what this is about your protected time and how this particular program is going to advance your career trajectory. So for that reason, we added this MCA impact statement, so that when the panelists come, okay, they know exactly how, in terms of the information, it kind of lets us know what your constraints are on your time, and also the resources available for your research. That's where you really, you put that forward. And then the other thing, as I was talking about, is what's the impact, on your career trajectory. So by engaging in this program over 2 or 3 years, how is it going to propel you forward in your research? That's where, the emphasis lies. Let's see, okay. All right, so it's very straightforward, so of course, you would, look for 22603, and then you would have to identify the division that you're actually going to, or directorate that you're going to submit this to. At the end, I'm going to give you an email address where essentially you need to send like a 1-page white paper. And then what'll happen is that'll go to the lead, and then the lead will try to direct it to the appropriate division for you. That's kind of the head start. And I'll talk about that, right at the end. In addition to what we require in the CAPG, we also, we need a section on candidates' past research, as well as your proposed research advancement and training plan, and then also your long-term career plans. Once again, getting back, to how is this going to, advance your career, reference cited, biographical sketches for both the PI as well as the partner, and then some additional things that we need to see, that impact statement that we were talking about, letters of collaboration written by the partner. That's going to be very, very important, that they articulate what this partnership is, what it's about, and how it's going to help them, as well as, to a certain degree, help themselves. And then we need a departmental letter, that essentially saying that they're going to support your project, but at the same time, they're going to provide you with that protected time. And we know how important that is, because after you get the grant, if you don't have that letter from the department chairperson, sometimes they can get amnesia, depending on, where you are, in your budgets. So by having that there, it's a part of the award. We put it in the award, whatever it is, right at the end. We put in the work conditions, so then that way you can take it back to them and say, hey, this is what you promised, that I would have, I would have that protected time. So it's really there, to protect you. So I am wrapping up here so that my colleagues can have ample amount of time. This is our little equation here for the MCA, which is the key point. We want to provide you with the protected time, resources, okay, partnerships, in order, to propel your career. That's the essentials. And notice I keep saying this, because we get these proposals in and all the focus is on the research. The research is fine because it has to go to bio or geo or whatever. They're going to be looking for the intellectual merit as well as the broader impact. But what we're really looking for, how is your time being protected? How are you using those resources? Who are you partnering with to give you those skills that you need? And how it's going to propel your career. So real quickly, a couple of take homes. This has been around for about 3 years. And what we found is that a lot of the panelists, reviewers, as well as the community, love the program. They said it really meets a real need. And we just had our PI-PD conference, our PI conference about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I mean, they really sung, the praises of the program. The other thing, as I said, it's not a typical research grant in that it's about your time, how you're going to use those resources and your partnerships. It's the only cross-directorate mid-career program that really focuses on the retooling to get you where you need to be. And once again, if your directorate is not here, MPS, science, or engineering, hey, pick up the phone, ask them why they're not a part of the MPA program. And then the other part is there's a very strong broadening participation focus. So they're specifically looking at underrepresented groups as well as MSI institutions. We don't have enough of those groups. All right, so it'd be great, if you can get that out to your colleagues. My last slide is this. This is the email, mca@nsf.gov. As I told you, these are the different individuals, project officers who are assigned to the project. Leslie Rissler out of Bio, who really, it's her brainchild. Once it goes to the MCA, she'll receive it. And then what she'll do is she'll try to send it to the appropriate person. That person will review your one-page white paper, all right, and then get back with you to let you know if you need to add anything to it. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Like we said, we're going to hold your questions till the end. And I am here, of course, as a resource if you have any further questions. All right. Thank you so much for your time. All right. You're up next.
All right, so thanks everyone for hanging in there with us. I am Dina Myers-Stroud. I am lead program officer for HBCU-EIR, Excellence in Research. I am also a program officer for a new program called Granted that works on research enterprise infrastructure. So if you're interested in that, grab me afterwards, shameless plug. So I want to just tell you a little bit about HBCU-EIR, which has the program objectives. So this one is recommended and appropriated by Congress. So we have a specific appropriation of funds from Congress, and the goal, this was set out in 2017, is to provide opportunities for both public and private HBCUs in order to stimulate sustainable improvement in their research and development capacity. And of course, they encourage us to use all the other means of which we can. But what has been so far is that this is research grants to individual faculty. That's been EIR to date. I think we'll see some developments in the future, but that's where EIR is right now. And so I just want to take a quick look at some of the directorate support of HBCUs. This is from 2012 to 2021, and just the overall picture here is that the number of proposals from HBCUs, it has gone up, and the number of funded awards has gone up. So those are great things. One of the things that we have seen, though, is that there's actually less institutions that are getting grants. So we really do want to encourage folks that maybe they haven't had an NSF for a while, or have never had an NSF grant, to think about these things and things like, to think about these things. And so encourage your colleagues to consider. The HBCU-EIR process is a little bit different because it is a cross directorate. It comes to a central location. That's the Office of Integrative Activities. They come to me. And so all general questions about EIR can also be directed to me. The grants are then distributed to the appropriate directorate, division, and program, and that's done through a liaison group. We have a representative from each directorate that's been part of the group and helps to make sure that these all have homes and get review. So, but that means it's really important to ensure the proposal aligns with an established program. If it's something that it may be a great idea, but if it doesn't line up with something that NSF already funds, it will be difficult for us to be able to review. Right? So that's always an issue that you'll want to have that alignment. And we can talk a little bit more about that actually at the end. And then the other issue with that is, of course, we try to get things out in 6 months, but the time to decision will really vary based on program. So you might have a colleague hear about their EIR in a few months, and you might not hear for 9 months because maybe SISE doesn't do their panels until April, and SBE did theirs in January. I mean, there's a real variability there. So you just have to bear that sort of in mind. So just looking at the eligibility and the timeline, so it must be led by an HBCU. Any non-HBCU partners must be as a subaward. So it is recommended that if you've had NSF funding within the 3 years prior, and of course, I mean, you guys already know this, so you should want to consider RIA, but I understand that RIA is a limited submission, and so sometimes EIR is seen as, well, overflow space, and that is fine. That is understood, that there'll be some people that are going to be entirely new investigators that are applying to EIR, right? The letter of intent is due July 2023. I didn't want to put a date on that because I know it's going to be changing, but I don't know when it is. But it's not going to shift significantly. It's just going to shift enough to get out of overlap zone of HBCU-UP. So it's just, we're revising that, but so it'll be coming soon, and the full proposals are due in October, and the letter of intent is required. Okay. So talk about the budgets for a second. There are no limits on the budget. Okay, there is no budget cap for HBCU EIR. As I hear people tell me that there's a budget cap, but there's no budget cap. So I just want to say it like 3 times. But there's no more than 20% of the budget can be allocated for equipment. I know a lot of folks feel like that's maybe not enough. We do have a lot of other equipment infrastructure grants that could be a good supplement to that. Like I said, any non-HBCU partners must be a subaward, and they also really need to be well justified and not a substantial portion of the budget. This is an HBCU program. We want the money to primarily be going to HBCUs. Do you have a quick?
Yeah, I have a question. So when the teacher policy, we are no limitation on the overall budget.
The budget has never had a cap.
But 2 years ago, we said $500,000.
Yes.
No, I don't know who told you that. That's not true. I know people say it's like $500,000 or $1 million, but that it is not the case that there is a cap on that budget. Now, what it does say is that if you're applying to a particular program, you want to keep into consideration what the size of that program's typical funding is. And that's understandable because the reviewers have this in their head, like, how are they asking for $500,000 when we only usually do $250,000? However, we remind them repeatedly that there's no budget cap. So, Alfred, did you want to just chime in with something?
No, it was a question coming in from online viewers about your point around the substantial portion of the budget for subawards.
There's not a number.
Okay, because the point was asking would 20% of the budget for subaward be considered substantial?
I wouldn't consider that substantial. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah. So, like I said, recommend staying in scale of scope of the aligned program, but there is room. I mean, you need to ask for what you need, right? So, and any proposed equipment or resources have to relate directly to the described research. Can't be like, oh, well, with the department needs something. Let's throw that in there. It needs to be associated with the actual research. I've written grants. I know how it is, right? So the project description, follow the PAPPG guidelines. The new one's out, 23-1. It's got a 15-page limit. It's very, very straightforward. We want your overall research goals. We really want just totally basic rationale, research questions, hypotheses, the design of activities, methodological approach, how to assess impact and project success. That is a little bit different than some other research grants. We really do want to spend a little bit of time thinking about your metrics of success, and a scholarly dissemination plan, right? Okay, so that's the program description. And then, so really important to reach out to NSF when it comes to EIRs, because you do really want that alignment. The better aligned it is with an established program that's funded, the easier it is for it to get reviewed and for you to get constructive feedback, right? So you can contact me. You can contact all the liaisons are listed on the solicitation. So you can find all their names for each directorate. And I would do this before you submit the LOI, right? There's also a new tool called the Program Suitability and Proposal Concept Tool, Prospect. That's suitability.nsf.gov with a bunch of little other S's in there. You want to look that up, but I can also tell you about that program as well. And so for EIR, the directorate that you would submit it to, actually, if you go into Prospect, it's under Office of the Director. So it's OD rather than OIA. If you want to send something into that space that would get to me. Yes. Go ahead.
So the funding,
Yes.
funding comes from your office or from the research director?
Funding comes from our office. So this is, yes, the funding comes from OIA. They are funded, right now they're 3-year grants. They're funded in full to the program. Okay, we'll hold because I want to make sure that Mary gets her chance to do her thing. So I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have answered any questions all, but all right. All right, I will hop off and let you. I'm gonna try. Yeah, let me give it a go.
I apologize. I'm actually not going to talk from my slides because what I am here to talk about is a brand new program at NSF called Excellent. And what this is a wrong presentation. So I apologize in advance. So let me just tell you a little bit about Excellent. So it's NSF 23-507 is the solicitation number. And hold on, I'm going to also make sure I don't run on. So let me set my timer on my watch so that we also have. Or not, yeah. Okay, here we go. Excellent. Unlike the two programs that were just talked about, actually is a program to help fund internships and co-ops for students. And so there is another session about funding for students, but I think there were so many of them that putting me in there wouldn't have been enough time. So Excellent is a brand new program that's funded between the new TIP Directorate and the Division of Education, so DUE and TIP. And the overarching goal is to provide experiential activities for the participants in emerging technology fields. So the good news is we have 2 deadlines of funding. The funding that you would be eligible to apply to is due in September, on September 14th. Our Excellent program was designed because we recognize there's a real gap in this type of support for students. That oftentimes students will be learning about things in the classroom and they could do undergraduate research, but working with industry partners, working with government agencies in emerging technology fields such as AI, advanced manufacturing, data sciences, biotechnology, all of those things were listed underneath the CHIPS Act. There are 3 tracks within the Excellent program. We have a track that we are moving that we call pivoters. So you can think of a pivoter as a student who maybe got a degree in a STEM field and wants to pivot specifically into an emerging technology field. Or they might have gotten a degree in business and they want to pivot into an emerging technology field. What Excellent will do is you can request funds to support those internships and co-ops with either the industry partner or the government agency partner for them to get direct skills in emerging technology fields. So this is not about basic coding. This is about computer science, but not just I'm going to teach these students how to code and now they can pivot into an emerging technology field. There's another track that's called beginners, which we think most of you here, your students likely fit into. And these are students who are coming into your STEM majors, who have no idea what some emerging technology fields are. So they, in terms of biotechnology, they may not be aware of how there's synthetic biology going on, and you want to pivot them into that area. The third track that we have is called explorations. This is for students who have no idea about what an emerging technology is. They might be in high school, they might be within the first 2 years of college, and the exploration track will provide any type of maybe not hands-on, but maybe tours of facilities, partnerships. Maybe it is industry representatives coming and talking to them about what it means to work in an emerging technology field. It might be a tour of a advanced manufacturing or a clean lab somehow, somewhere, so that all of a sudden students could see themselves in that career. There are 10 elements to our program. Participants have to be in a cohort. So when you're developing your program, you want to make sure that students are brought in as a cohort and that they have mentoring and cross-disciplinary mentoring. So mentoring from you, mentoring from the industry experts, maybe mentoring from your career services department about the soft skills, the interview skills, creation of their resumes. We also, one of the elements that's also required of Excellent is that DEIA training and support is available for all stakeholders. So as we were developing this program, one of the things that we heard was that we have students that have the interest, they have the ability, and they've got great ideas. And we place them with industry partners, and the culture is such that they get completely turned off and they walk away. So one of the things that is a requirement is for you to describe, what does that look like? What does that support look like for the cohort? What does it look like for your stakeholders, so that you create an environment that is open and collaborative and in which your students then definitely want to enter. Every Excellent project, so they've talked a little bit about project descriptions. Our project descriptions are 15 pages in length. One of the elements that's required of a proposal is a 2-page mentoring plan. It's an added document onto the project description where you take two full pages to talk about how the participants in your program are going to be mentored. So we said that it was important that they're there as part of a cohort. So how are you going to facilitate mentoring between individuals in that community? How are they going to be mentored by your partners? Partners are really important for Excellent. So when you're putting a proposal together, we are looking for you to have subawards. So there'll be one individual or one organization that puts in the awards, but there will be subawards to businesses or industry or other federal labs that those folks, including you, are providing those experiential education activities for students. The bulk of the budget, though, because we know how important it is to get students the hands-on experiences and the hands-on skills, the bulk of the budget needs to go to participant support cost, which, if you are familiar with NSF funding, means that IDCs don't get computed. But when we talk about participant support costs, we're talking about a variety of different supports. So it's not just a stipend, and it's not just, it can be transportation, it can be childcare, it can be a variety of different sorts of things that are going to remove the barriers for your students to move into emerging technology fields. So the overarching goal is a recognition by NSF that everybody needs to be at the table with respect to emerging technologies. Everybody brings a different lens, brings different experiences and different and cool ways of looking at things. And without that energy and without that viewpoint, we're not going to succeed in terms of moving our science and our technology forward. So with that, I am going to stop. I apologize that I don't have slides. A couple take-home messages. Number one, our email is excellent, EXLENT at nsf.gov. So if you just Google NSF Excellent, you will find us. I mentioned that we have 2 deadlines this year. One is in March and one is in September. We will be looking for reviewers for the March deadline. If you are thinking, wow, this sounds like a cool idea. I work in an emerging technology field and paying students for an internship or a co-op, we definitely need. I encourage you to sign up to be a reviewer for our March deadline proposals. And if you go to the Excellent website, there's a link there that will help you get signed up to be within our reviewer pool. Another important thing is we've got resources on the websites. We have a FAQ, we have a technical webinar, we have a Q&A session. And we as program officers want to see your one-pagers. So I can't tell you how many one-pagers we have received that we will provide you feedback as to whether or not what you're proposing to do fits within the Excellent program. One caveat, do not send me a revised REU proposal. Because I will tell you, no, this doesn't, where are your partners, right? It's very easy for reviewers to, you need to craft the program to the excellent, your project and the activities for the students to the Excellent program. You can't take REU or another type of program and pivot it into Excellent. You're going to want to really sit and think clearly. And so what we talk about, we have these, the elements of a successful proposal. Is it in an emerging technology field? The CHIPS Act outlines what those emerging technology fields are. Are there cohorts? Is there mentoring? Is there support in DEI training? Right? All of those things are elements to Excellent that are really important to us, and you need to make sure you include those in your proposal. And with that, I am going to stop, and I'm going to ask Dina and Leroy to come up here. We're all going to now start answering any questions that you might have. So sure, go ahead. You had your hand raised first.
The industry partner have anybody?
Yes, the industry, you as a sub-award, any and all of the stakeholders can ask for funds through the Excellent program. So our maximum budget is $1 million and the duration of the grants are 3 years long, but the industry partner can definitely ask for resources as part of the budget.
I have a question. So most of the the grants always has a partner. You want a non-HBCU partner. What is the thought behind that? Is that we cannot do it ourselves, or just asking?
So I can answer for the MCA program. Keep in mind with the MCA program, it's about retooling and doing something different than you're already, essentially doing. So it's really designed for someone who's looking to make a change in their research, maybe add something onto it. So we ask that you partner with someone, and it doesn't necessarily have to be outside the university. It could be someone in the university that's doing something and you want to move in that trajectory. But for the MCA program, it's just about retooling, reskilling, so that you, in a sense, you can, kind of propel your trajectory toward full professorship.
And in terms of the Excellent program, the reason why we have partners is that we know industry sometimes has facilities like clean room facilities and other advanced manufacturing equipment that you may not have on site, that it's going to be important for students to say that they did those sorts of things so that they can move into an emerging technology career, so that they had that in situ experience. And that's why we ask for partners.
So can I add something real quick with the Excellent? So I work with Mary on the Excellent project. Another thing that we're looking at, a lot of these students, we're looking for the non-traditional, type students. And a lot of these students are actually located in the non-for-profit grassroots organizations for workforce development. So that would be an ideal of a partner, that you can actually go after, so that you can recruit those individuals into your program so they can then get into emerging technology type fields.
So that creates a barrier for me. For example, I'm a physical chemist myself, but I have a training in polymer sciences. So I can easily establish a polymer sciences base, but now I have to look for a partner. I have the same set of skills, right?
But it's not, so the Excellent program, let me speak a little bit about that. It's, to me, one of our jobs as educators is to open doors to students. And so by having partnerships, you are opening up doors and you're creating a network for your students that can come back in a wide variety of ways. And that they may end up, so yeah, maybe you don't get something out of your partnership, but your students do. And maybe they stay with that partner and they come back to you and they say, we have discovered this. Can you help us with it? Right? So it can pay dividends down the road when you work in partnerships.
And to be super clear, EII doesn't require partnerships at all. Sorry,
All right.
back in the back.
For the EIR, you said it was recommended that you have an NSF grant within 3 years. Does it matter the type of NSF? Like if it's not like a research grant, if it's a broadening participation or a tip, does that matter?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit more, it's a combination of experience with NSF funding.
So
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
To repeat the question. The question was for the EIR not having, you needed to have NSF funding. Did the NSF funding had to be in a research directorate? That was the question.
Yeah, and I would say not necessarily.
About the partners and supporting steps, can we give them a stipend? If it does, what is like the appropriate amount we can give them? Like any of this grant,
So the question is related to partnerships and can you give partnerships funding? And then what would that amount look like? Right, like a stipend. And so I know I'm going to sound like a real bureaucrat right now, but it depends on the project and it depends on how they're interacting with you on your project. And so you need to, like with the Excellent program, we're expecting the majority of funds or a real chunk of the funds to go to participant support costs. So with that, you can't provide that much to the industry partner, but you can ask for some funds for their time and their support.
So like 10% or do you have?
We leave it up. There are some, we've heard from some of the folks who are applying for the March deadline who've been sending us our one pagers. They're not requesting any funds for their industry partner because their industry partner is going to be supporting the program with existing resources. But we've also heard from others that they need to pay. And so it's entirely up to you and the partnerships that you form.
For the MCA project, we're prescriptive. So you can provide your partner 1 month's summer salary over the duration, of the grant. So you choose whether you want to be a year, 2 or 3 years. And then the other thing that I did not have on the screen as well, you can also put expenses in there for your for your partner to travel to our national PIPD meeting, but just one.
Actually, for the MCA program, and I know you said you're having like pilots and things like this, but I would suggest that if you could allow for say 50% time for 2 years, and then maybe 25% or something like that for the third year, because I know many of us are at teaching institutions with 12 to 15 credit loads, and like 2 months is just like it's not.
So before you answer, so the question is for the MCA, for those individuals who are at PUIs and have high teaching loads, it'd be great if you could disperse those funds 50% of time over 2 years instead of the way that they're thinking about it. So.
I think you were saying, so you said, I think you said 50% year 1, year 2, and then year 3, 25%.
Right. So increase the
Increase.
the total amount allocated, or the total amount feasible, and then the percentage for.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take that back to the working group for future solicitation.
And I'd just like to add for EIR, you can request 3 months. It's not just 2 months, it's 3 months. Per year.
For MCA, why is there a barrier of at least 3 years at associate's level?
I'm sorry?
For MCA, why is there a barrier of 3 years, at least 3 years?
So the question is, why there is a barrier, I think you're talking about that's a good question. So he wanted to know, why is the 3-year stipulation in there for an associate professor? That's a good question. I don't know that particular question. I just came onto the program about a year ago, but I will take that and find out. Yeah, excellent question. Yeah.
For the excellent program, can HBCU collaborate with the non-HBCU institution?
Yes, so the question is for excellent, can HBCU collaborate with another institution? Absolutely.
If someone has RIA program and it's not yet over, so he has to wait for 3 years and then apply for EIR, or can apply for EIR while RIA is not finished?
So repeat the question. So the question is, if someone has an RIA, can they apply for an EIR before their RIA is done? I mean, I see RIA and EIR as natural steps. So I would think I wouldn't apply in the first year of RIA. Like, I would use my RIA funding and then apply to hopefully seamlessly have funding for another 3 years through EIR mechanism. Does that make sense? So I would, if you get the RIA, use the RIA funding before the RIA ends. Go ahead, apply for EIR so that you can have a seamless transition between RIA and EIR. It's a natural step if you to be able to, and that gives you much more years of continual research funding. Yeah.
So kind of follow up on EIR. That previous 3 years that you needed to have.
You don't. It's there's just to clarify, you don't need 3 years of funding previous to apply for EIR. It's just recommended.
Okay. So
There's no requirement. Yeah. Is that? Alfred, what do we
There's
got?
a question from our online audience in, not directly related, but it's asking about Catalyst Award.
Oh, it's not me.
Right. So they're asking about Catalyst Awards. So of course, in the HBCU-UP track, we have the TIP Awards. So essentially, how a TIP is converted to a Catalyst, once it goes to panel, and if it doesn't fare well in panel, however, when the project directors come together, we think it's something probably pretty neat. It'll add to the portfolio. What we will do is we will convert the TIP to a Catalyst. So instead of 3 years of funding, we might say do 1 or 2 years of funding, kind of develop the ideal. And once the ideal is developed, then come back and apply again for a TIP award. So that's the difference between the TIP and the Catalyst.
And I guess the Catalyst is only part of TIP. Other funding opportunities don't have a similar Catalyst type of.
Right. So the question was for the other HBCU-UP tracks, do the other tracks have a similar type of catalyst? No, only the TIP has the catalyst.
Let's say if I have a current EIR, then can I apply for another EIR? What is the gap that I need to have?
So the question is, if you have an EIR, can you apply for a second EIR? What the solicitation says, there's nothing in the solicitation says you cannot do that. What it does say is that it will, if you've had EIR funding before, that will be taken into consideration when reviewing the proposal. So that's how I can answer that.
Will it be the same transition from RIA to MCA? That means within that 3 years of RIA can be applied for MCA.
Sure. So the question is, would it be the same type of transition from IRA to MCA? I think it depends. Keep in mind that the criteria for the MCA is that you have been an associate professor for at least 3 years. And then, as I said, you need to be able to make the case that you need the protected time and the resources, to a sense, elevate your position or your trajectory. So it just really kind of depends on you making that point in that justification. Oh, sure. Right, right. Yep, yep. It's two separate programs. Yep, two separate programs.
Thank you. And I apologize for working late, so you're doing this, so if you brought this up, my apologies. Mid-career awards, this is strictly, it's not part of the HBCU-UP system program. The mid-career for biology professors.
That,
Career awards,
yeah.
is that
So that's
the HBCU umbrella, or is that more separate?
right. So the question is the MCA program a part of the HBCU portfolio? No. So it's a separate working group that I'm working on within the NSF. Yeah. Now it originated out of biology. That's where it started before it spread across the other directorates. Yeah. All right, we have plenty of time. We have until 10:15. So.
The only thing, yeah, so knowing that as a experienced program officer, I'm going to give you a little bit of my top two things that shoot down a proposal. One, you don't provide enough details. So one of the things you want to do, and I recommend people do, is to give your proposal to some friendly eyes to look at, people who are not familiar with your area. So it might be a colleague on your campus. Have them read your proposal, and they will have questions because they don't have that lens. They're not viewing your proposal like you've been viewing your proposal. So they are going to have kind of the reviewer's perspective with respect to, well, you say so like for the Excellent program, you say you're going to target these students, but you don't tell us how you're going to, what's your selection criteria, or how you are going to design advertising materials to make sure that students that you want to target feel like they belong in this program. So providing those sorts of details. So give your proposal to friendly eyes. The other thing that I see that shoots like a proposal is great. And you see the panel, we love this idea, we love this. And then there's a paragraph that you added at somewhere in your proposal and you say, oh, we're going to expand this to blah. So then A, you start to become too ambitious, or B, all of a sudden the panel's like, well, there was no details about this one aspect. So you want to make sure that whatever you put into your proposal, there's enough details, and don't try to do too much. I can't tell you how many proposals have been reviewed, not positively, because in a 3-year time, it's way too much work. So know that if you have a solid plan with a solid timeline, that is going to win out over trying to cram too much in. Those are my two pieces of advice.
Two more questions from our online audience. One is just asking for clarification. If a PI can gain an EIR more than once.
Okay, so the question is, can a PI gain an EIR more than once? The answer is yes. However, as the solicitation indicates, it is reviewed, it is taken into account when the review happens if you've already had substantial EIR funding. So.
And then a second question is asking if a PI has a broadening participation award, should their next award be an EIR?
Okay, so if they've got a broadening participation award, should the next one be an EIR rather than our RIA? dstroud@nsf.gov. Yeah, email me. Let's talk about it. I need more information. And I really want to strongly recommend, we really need folks to review. And it is transformative in terms of your grant writing to be a reviewer. And you don't have to have had a grant, right, to be a reviewer. So, you know, you just have to send your CV to program officers of places you're interested in reviewing, or that, and you're going to learn so much. It's an incredible experience. Your program officers, they're your friends, and they're here to help and serve you. So, yeah, always don't hesitate to reach out.
I just want to say something. So before, at one time, the EIR was actually in the HBCU-UP portfolio.
Yes.
And it was originally designed that you would come in at an RIA, then you would move to the EIR, and then from there, you would move into the other RNRAs, research and related activities.
Discipline-specific.
Right. So we were trying to diversify the RNRAs. I don't know if that's changed. I mean, Dina would have to speak to that, but that was the original kind of concept, when it was in the HBCU portfolio. I don't know what they do.
It's still
right.
the same. It's still the idea that once you've had an EIR, you will then apply for a discipline-specific program grant that you have established this yourself in this space. You've gotten the preliminary data you need, et cetera, that you can then go forward to, an individual directly to a program rather than through this mechanism.
And I would like to add, you really need to do that. We need to diversify the RNRAs, so just think about it once you finish the EIR, to move into the more discipline specific RNRAs.
I'm also going to make a point to also consider applying for programs in the DUE directorate. For example, the Improving Undergraduate Science Education program. We just got proposals for track 1 proposals back in January. Our next deadline for IUS is in July, and those are track 2 and track 3s. Any type of innovative work that you're doing in the classroom, anything that you're doing to build community and support and identity with your students, those are the types of programs that are supported within the IUS program. You don't have to create new curriculum. You could just be adopting it at your institution. So it could be a course-based undergraduate research or a community-based project or any type of active learning or POGIL. Maybe you've never tried POGIL and you want to try it at your institution. You can apply to the IUS program. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You can adapt it or adopt it to your institution. So I'm going to also encourage you to think about how your research ties into some of the educational things. So maybe you're getting graduate students that you feel like miss some component of training. Well, revise your curriculum in the undergraduate through an IUS project so that your students have those skills so that they can be really active contributors to your research programs.
We still have plenty of time, still have about 14 more minutes.
So the last point that you made, let's pretend that I'm not going through EIR and I'm going to go directly to a directorate, say college state or something like that. So how is your role coming? Is it something? So I'm just trying to understand what would be the mechanism for you. If I'm applying from the directorate, not within any of your definition, like going directly to.
Right.
Yeah, one of us are involved. Yeah.
Right. So you want to know what our involvement is?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So the question is, if a PI decides to apply directly to a research and related activities, a directorate, would the HBCU program have any involvement in that process? No.
Yeah.
Something about the program that has the potential that it could cross into private industry or business. Does the NSF, I'm sorry, it's a lot of the box, but you're here. Thought I'd ask. How does the NSF do that? Are there specific grant mechanisms for that kind of collaborative effort?
Yeah, so the brand new TIP directorate, Talent, Innovation, and Partnerships, came about because there's a recognition that individuals within the academy sometimes are developing really cool, innovative work that they now need to be able to scale up and manufacture or do whatever to. And so TIP has a variety of funding that is associated to do exactly what you're talking about. NSF has a longstanding program, the SBIR, the Small Business, I can't remember what the IR stands for. But anyway, there is funding there, but TIP is rolling out a wide variety of different types of support structures and programs in support of that.
That also feeds into workplace readiness.
Yes. Yeah, and that's where the Excellent program comes into play. So TIP came out with the Engines program, and what we're hearing from the contributors and the folks who are applying to Engines is we want to jumpstart the economy in our area, but now we need the talented workforce, entry level and advanced workforce, in order for us to be successful. And so Excellent ties into helping build that workforce.
All right, any more burning questions? All right, if not, we will give you back, all right, we'll give you back 6 or 7 minutes.
And,
All right.
and we're here. Don't hesitate to stop us and ask us a question.
Yeah.
That's why we're here today.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
coming.
coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next
Thanks.
session starts at 10:30. All right.